Hi everyone, Carol here. If you watched part one of Working with Your Greatest Fear, today we're going to move into part two. I've got a card up here if you want to click and watch the first video. If you haven't gotten to it, I'll also have it down in the resource notes. So make sure you've done steps 1 through 4, and let's get started with the next steps in dealing with your greatest fear. Okay, hopefully by now you've watched part one of Working with Your Greatest Fear. You've gone through steps 1 through 4, and I'm going to start now with step number 5. And that step is really simple, and that is that I want you to share your greatest fear with someone who is safe and that you trust. Now, some people will say that we don't want to give voice to anything because it makes it real. I think that there's some value to that, and we certainly shouldn't be walking around and going, I'm afraid of this, and I'm afraid of that, I'm afraid of this, and I'm afraid of that, because we are giving it voice and we're giving it power. The way I'm talking about giving a voice to your fear is actually setting it free. Okay. And so I did this example with a friend of mine in our development circle. We were inspired to do this by spirit, and she was someone that I really trusted. And so I had to voice the fear. When we do that, we actually are kind of dissipating some of its power. We are acknowledging it, we're getting it out. We're not suppressing all of these emotions that we have deep down inside of us by hanging on to that fear and clutching it to it. But what we are doing is we're simply saying, I acknowledge that this is a fear and that it has had power over me. I'm not going to walk around every day and say, I'm scared of the political environment, or I'm scared of being a bad parent, because then we're giving it power by voicing it all the time. So I just want you to think about finding that person that you feel that you can share your secret fear with, because the whole point is to just get the emotion out, to voice it so that it doesn't have that power over you. You don't want it nagging down there at the bottom. And allow that person to talk with you. Be vulnerable, if you will. And hopefully that person will be supportive. If you are the person that's listening to someone else's fear, don't judge it. It's very, very real for them. And so just listen. And if you have any advice or any suggestions, help them to work through that, understanding that there probably won't be any resolution in that moment. But if nothing else, just the listening provides a powerful place to start making the shift. So don't keep keeping that fear deep down inside. Find someone safe that you trust, mention it, talk about it, and then we're going to move on to the next step. So I love step 6. This is the one that's really fun. And what we're going to do is we're going to rename the fear. Now, in part 1, I talked about my own fears and I used the name Restricted Sally. And so we talked with Sally. We had a discussion with Sally. We asked Sally where in my body she lived, where she came from, why she was there, and what purpose we thought Sally served me. Okay, so hopefully you've done these things for yourself and your fear as well. So now what we want to do, however, is we want to give Sally a powerful name. We don't want to give Sally this fearful power that she has over us. I don't want to call her restricted, and I probably don't want to associate her with Lay Down Sally anymore, because remember, that was the song that I was attached to with the name. Those have some negative connotations. There was also an example, if you've read the newsletter, about, let's say, for example, your fear is being perhaps not the parent that you want to be. And so you are insecure mommy or fearful daddy. I don't remember the exact names. But what we're going to do in this step is you want to rename it. And I want you to rename it by giving it like a superpower. Okay. So instead of insecure mommy, now maybe we're magic mommy, or maybe we're Wonder Woman. Okay. So for my Restricted Sally, I've had to kind of sit back and ask myself, what is the name that I feel is going to be more powerful for me? How can I conquer this fear? Or what is the aspect of myself that will be able to overcome this fear that I want to call in? Where is my superhero, my superpower, if you will? Okay. And so I want to call her Courageous Katie. So now instead of Restricted Sally, I have Courageous Katie. And so I want to find that name, replace that with the less powerful name. So do that if you can. Take a moment, figure out what superhero you want to call yourself to face your fear. Okay, moving on to step 7, let's assume that you have your superhero name and mine is Courageous Katie. And so I want to have a conversation with Courageous Katie, the exact same way that we had a conversation with our fear before we renamed our superhero. So in this particular case, when I had the conversation with Restricted Sally, I asked her where she lived and what she was all about. So now I want to have the conversation with Courageous Katie, and I want to say, well, Courageous Katie, what is different about you? What makes you capable of being stronger than my Restricted Sally? And so you just again want to kind of start this intuitive dialogue. Don't worry about, I'm not psychic, I can't do this. That's not what this is. This is a subconscious moving into the conscious mind type of a conversation. And so I will use again myself as an example to kind of help walk you through it. If I think about Courageous Katie, her attributes are as follow. She's not scared of anything. She's got it. She can handle it. She recognizes that while the political climate is crazy, there really isn't too much she can do about it. But if it comes to her front door, she's going to take care of herself and she's going to be okay. So that's my superhero. That's Courageous Katie. She's very, very well aware that if anything takes place, she's going to be able to handle herself. So I want to also repeat the same thing that we did, not just by having the conversation with Katie. And I hope that you'll take it a little bit deeper. You know, are you resistant to being Katie? How can you bring Katie more into being a part of your life? But also asking, where does Courageous Katie live? And again, I feel myself kind of wanting to go right back here. She has to be a mindset. Courageous Katie, if we think about our superhero stance. My friend will laugh at this because she's the one that showed me our superhero or our Superman stance. This is my Courageous Katie stance. And Courageous Katie knows I've got it. I perhaps can't control everything that's going on, but when something happens that's going to affect my life, I've got it. It's going to be okay. I'm going to have the answers that I need, and I'm going to solve the solutions because Courageous Katie has got the skills. Okay. If you catch yourself doubting why Courageous Katie or whatever your superhero is can't overcome your fear, make note of those. What is it that you think that Katie needs to have so that she can overcome her fear? What does your superhero lack? Because that may be the superhero's kryptonite, but you don't want to create a superhero with kryptonite, right? So work with that. Ask yourself, how can my superhero overcome that? Every superhero is able to overcome their kryptonite, so to speak. So then I want to go back to asking Courageous Katie, where else are you in my body? Where else do you live? And I feel Katie on my shoulders, actually. Now, that wasn't something that came up during my fear. So all of a sudden, Katie is here. She's right here. And I feel a sense of being capable of handling the burden, capable of handling anything that comes my way, being capable of handling that fear. So part of that might be tied to that stance. Katie's got it, right? Her back is straight, her shoulders are strong, and she's capable of doing that. So these are the kinds of conversations you want to have with yourself. Move again from head to toe, asking your superhero where you feel he or she or it resides, because maybe your superhero is an animal or something else that you want to create for yourself that gives you a sense of feeling strong. It doesn't matter what that is. It's just something that resonates with you. So take that time to have that conversation with the different areas of the body, recognizing where the superhero lies, because that's going to be important for step 8, and we'll move to that next. So the last step is actually applying our superhero anytime we feel our fears surfacing. Now, I do think that if you feel that you have this greatest fear, just by creating your superhero, you're already shifting yourself automatically and energetically into having a solution for the fear. You're not necessarily, perhaps I can't control the political climate, right? I can't control the fact that perhaps I may not be making all of the perfect decisions as a parent. But as magical mommy or Wonder Woman, I recognize my intentions are in the right place. I've got the resources I need. And if I don't, I'm going to go get them. And I'm going to find other magic mommies that have already figured these answers out. And I'm going to bring that home and I'm going to be the Wonder Woman. So these are examples of the ways that you can, instead of reliving the fear and being with insecure mommy, that you can move to magic mommy or to Wonder Woman. Or for me, for example, getting out of restricted Sally, and instead of giving her all of the power and allowing that fear to take over, I can move into my superhero and allow courageous Katie to be the one that starts taking charge. Now, when you apply this last step, I want you to take time regularly to step into your superhero costume, right? We walk around all day long being Clark Kent, being the back end newspaper guy with the glasses on. But then when it's time to really act, we have to get into our superhero costume. And so you want to take time to visit your superhero, to be into your superhero strengths. So for me, that might look like, what has courageous Katie got to say about what's going on today? Nope, she's got it. She's prepared. She feels like she's needed to do this and she's needed to do that, but she's done those steps and she's taken them. I feel confident in my heart. I feel confident in my solar plexus. My shoulders are back, and my fear is not going to get a hold of me today. So the more that you work with your superhero, the more that you have this conversation with it, the more that you can build this persona where you've got yourself into an empowering situation that you can bring in when you feel your fear is taking over. Because let's face it, we're all going to have it, and I've had it as well. Just recently, as a matter of fact, I had a bout with some sessions that did not go very well. So I started doubting myself, and I started sinking into all of this fear. And so when we create this persona for ourselves, when we create our superhero, the more we've practiced and worked with it, the more that we've developed it and know what that superhero feels like, the more we can call on that energy almost automatically and go, courageous Katie's got this. Courageous Katie is not going to back down from a challenge. She recognizes that although there's some fear here, we're just going to push through because she's the superhero. And the real secret is we are the superhero. We are our own heroes. We have our own abilities to be capable of overcoming the challenges that we've been given in life. We have strengths and tools. That was, a matter of fact, one of the daily lessons this week. If you've got the newsletter, you'll see that, is that we've been given the tools that we need in order to accomplish our life plan and fulfill our tasks. The lesson talks about God doesn't give us more than we can handle, and that's really true. But we've also already been given the tools that we need to overcome whatever the challenges are that we have. So when we look at these fears, whether that's insecure mommy or fear of having a bad reading, perhaps, or even the political climate, we have to ask ourselves, I've already got the tools. I have them because they've been given to me. So which tools do I have that I can bring in, create that superhero and say, I can overcome this. And so when I'm creating Courageous Katie, for example, what tools do I know I have? First of all, I know I'm strong. I know I'm stubborn. I know I'm capable. And I know that I can do anything that I set my mind to. That sometimes there are going to be setbacks, but that my courageous Katie has always managed to overcome it. I just have to give her the chance to drive forward, and she's going to come out the winner in the end. And so those are the kinds of tools and the mindsets that we want to have in creating our superhero. And I promise you, when you start looking at your strengths, at the assets, at the tools that God has given you, and you develop and bring those into your superhero, you're going to be able to use your superhero persona in probably a wide variety of different ways. So even if you don't want to specialize it and say it's Courageous Katie or it's Magic Mommy, maybe you'll just want to call it Wonder Woman or give it some name that you can bring in anytime that you feel like you're struggling. So I know these things sound really silly, but I hope that you've taken these steps and you can really look at them and ask yourself, how can I start working with this fun and simple way of shifting my energy? Because if you stay in the energy of the fear, if you stay in the energy of the doubt, and I understand that it's difficult, I just got through my own struggle as well, of going, but I had to persevere, right? We have to move forward. We have to bring in the superhero and keep moving forward, knowing that there is a solution. So if you want to work with this, it's just a fun little way, I think, to get you recognizing where in your body your fears lie, because that's really important and it's really telling. and that we're really overlaying our superhero, not just mentally and imagining it, but also asking the superhero where in the body it resides and how we can use that to pull out the negative aspects and bring in the positive ones that we need to own as a part of who we truly are, because they're here to help us fulfill our life plan. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this little exercise. Thanks for allowing me to share. And if you have a superhero, I'd love to hear about it and how it worked for you. Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.